We got a lot of names that I'm sure Pamela has brought in here because I see law firm. I see, I'm like, but please follow the Edis page as well.
Yes, yes.
We have these conversations on a monthly basis. Um, so just to introduce myself, I'm Christine, executive producer and co-owner of Edis. Um, we have Michelle, who's also executive producer and co-owner of this space as well. And then our lovely guests, which I will allow you to introduce yourself in just a second. For those of you who are new to Edis, we are a digital network of videos and podcasts and with some dope merch. We service or create content for Black, Indigenous people of color. And we invite you all to check out our space. We're in the process of crowdfunding right now. So please, we're looking to build out a subscription service plan that's going to house content for Black, Indigenous people of color, content by us and for us. So please check us out if you haven't already or if you don't know of us. And with that, I'm going to kick off the conversation. We're really excited to have this conversation. We're going to be talking all things entrepreneurship, trademarks, LLC, get some technical language in there, but really just talking overall on how to get started if you are getting started. And for those who have started, really how to protect yourself as an entrepreneur. I know we've learned a lot in this process. We didn't have the answers. We didn't know what we were doing when we started, as well as many may feel. And so, you know, having people like Pamela or so many coaches that we've talked to across the board have really sort of helped and nurture our space to where it is right now and even moving forward. So Pamela, I would love to let the people know a little bit about yourself, what you do and who you are.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Thank you. It is both of you, everyone, for having me here. Really honored. My name is Pamela Rosario. As I've said, or as you've said, I'm the managing attorney of Pamela Rosario Law. I'm from the Bronx. Anybody out
Hey.
there? And yeah, I've been an attorney for over a decade now, but very recently, about a year and change ago, launched my own law firm. And can I just say how special this is for me? Because I did some math and you guys were one of like my first little cohort of clients. I remember, you know, telling you like I just started out and everything. So this is really beautiful for us to kind of come full circle and now be talking about all these things and your registered trademark.
Right. Absolutely. What did you say, Michelle?
Which just happened.
Which just happened, which is a conversation in and of itself, right? Because
Yeah.
I think overall we may assume that these things would happen quickly, right? You know, as we LLC and for many entrepreneurs, we think it stops at the LLC.
Right.
It's like we got the congratulations, you're a business now.
That's it.
And legally, you actually are not a business yet until you have like all the backings, which was an interesting thing to learn as a new entrepreneur. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about your journey, Pamela, too, because you came from corporate law space. You went into doing your own firm. You said we were one of your first clients in that space. So how has that journey been for you? You know, what challenges may have come across from that too?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's been a long time coming. I think that nowadays, as I'm sure you agree, entrepreneurship is, you know, big because there are so many resources out there for small business owners to just like get information and really start their own businesses. But I think that, you know, I graduated college. I don't remember. I graduated law school in 2011, so 4 years before that. You know, that wasn't really a thing then. It was like get a job, or like we were in, you know, the middle of the 2008 craziness that happened. And it was like everyone trying to get a job and starting your own business wasn't a thing. So, you know, I did that. I went to law school, and after law school, I worked at an investment bank, and then I went into my corporate career at the firm that I was just at for the past almost 8 years. And, for a while that was okay. But I think as time goes on and you evolve as a human being, you start to kind of want more for yourself and your family. And corporate America, we could have a whole live on my feelings about corporate America.
I'm sure.
Let's just say I was done with it. And then, 2020 happened and we were all home, and I kind of got to a space where I was like, yeah, I'm an attorney, but like I want to do more. I want to actually, as corny as it sounds, help people. Like, how can I do that? I'm, working in corporate. I deal with, transactions and businesses. What can I do? So I was like, well, I'm going to start like a legal consulting business. Like, I didn't even call it a law firm. I was like, I'm just going to help people. Like, if they need me, I'll like, assist anyone wants to get out of a contract. And it kind of like took on from there. I realized that small business owners, they really need a lot of help. This information is not out there. It's not readily available. It can be really, really confusing to navigate. And so it kind of just took hold from there. I started getting clients, and I think I underestimated the importance of how impactful it is for a business owner to see an attorney that looks like them. And, I realized that, and it was amazing for me. There were people that wanted to work with me and already trust me just because they were like, oh my God, you look like me, you talk like me, you're from where I'm from. And so that was really amazing. And as the clients grew, I was like, wow, this is a law firm. Like, I can say that, right? And to say that you own your own law firm, I still, I'm like, that's insane. And so I did it for like a year basically. And I started getting that itch of like, okay, one, it was incredibly difficult. It was like working two jobs. I was working my 9 to 5 and doing this, and, being a mom and a wife and a friend and all of those things. And so I began to feel really burnt out, and all of the things that I wanted in place before I quit weren't really there, but something inside was just like, you have to do this. Like, ya está bueno, like, you tried it, you can get clients, you can help people, you have a system. Even if you're not ready, like, take the leap. And while I don't recommend taking these leaps if you're not like financially secure, I do recommend, to trust your intuition and to take kind of measured and calculated risk, right? Like, it was risky, yeah, because I didn't have, 8 months of living expenses or whatever financial experts recommend. But I knew that I was doing it already, right? And all I needed to do was commit to it more and, kind of spend more time on it. So I did it. I gave notice this February 1st of this year, and it was the scariest thing ever. But afterwards, it was such a feeling of relief because, again, it was a long time coming, and it's something that I wanted to do for a really long time. And I finally did it, and it was kind of like, okay, there's no going back now.
Right. After you take the leap, it's like you have to keep on going.
That's it.
I do, like, before we move on, I really want to like address the point that you make about like having an attorney that looks like you. Like, I honestly like feel that I was talking to my friend when we were talking, and that's what I loved about you and our relationship. It was just like I didn't feel like it was a business relationship. It was like you were my friend and you were telling me these are the things that you need to do so that you could protect yourself. And you just simplified the language, and you just like all the questions that we had, you were just always there. So I do want to really emphasize like your work ethic and just how easy you make it. Because it's a lot in terms of process, in terms of information, in terms of money. So having that security, like Pamela got, like she got, like was so crucial in the process. So thank you for that.
That means the world to me. It's literally one of the pillars of my firm is to make legal education and just like this whole thing accessible, but also like understandable, right? Like
Mhm.
we as lawyers tend to complicate things, maybe because we think we have to speak a certain way to sound smart, whatever that means, or, but our clients did not go to law school, right? And that's the reason why they're hiring us. And so I really, really try to make sure that my clients understand everything. Yes, it's on me to like do the legal work and, represent them, but I want them to understand why we're doing it, right?
Yeah, there's so much language and jargon that, like you mentioned, like we don't oftentimes understand. And I think that's what generally, right? That's what turns people away from even seeking out
Right.
a lawyer. Besides, like the money aspect,
Yeah.
because it can get costly, but also finding someone that's gonna speak to those terms in your language. Like
Yeah.
speak to me in English and not in the jargon that
Right.
that's listed on this contract, right?
Right.
And we talked to several lawyers before we came across you, we met you or whatever, or met with you. And yeah, we had one lawyer that just was like spitfire, like everything, like all the things that we needed to do, it was like and we're like, what?
Yeah.
Like I lost you at business. Like,
Right.
like because, and I get it too, right? When you're in that world and you know it so well, you
Right.
forget when you're talking to like, it's a difference between talking to people who are like owning small businesses than like
Yeah.
corporate law. And these are people that are like understanding of all the jargon, right? So
Totally.
it makes a huge difference because I remember that I was just like, huh? What are you talking about? Just tell me the steps. Like, what do we
Right.
gotta get?
What do I need to do?
What do I need to do? Right? Like, give it to me in basic layman's terms.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so that's extremely important. Thank you to everyone that's joining, commenting in the comment section. Please, if you have any questions, you can start to ask those in the question section of the live as we move forward. If you know anyone that may be interested in this conversation, share it with your people so they can be invited into this conversation. But yeah, with that, I think one of the questions we wanted to ask really is like, like in the challenges of it all, what sort of centers you in those challenging moments, right? As you go,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges, and then we can talk about centering, but
Yeah.
was fear, right? Like, even though I'm an attorney, I had never done this before. I'm an entrepreneur, just like all of my clients, right? I'm a small business owner. And so, fear of moving forward, of doing something that hasn't been done by anyone that I've seen, we don't grow up, I hate to generalize, but most of us in this community don't grow up in communities where, entrepreneurship and knowing about LLCs and bank accounts and all that stuff is like in our family, right? Yes, we have like bodegueros and the lady that sells, coquitos on the street, but that's entrepreneurship for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have hustlers around us.
Hustlers,
They've been
yeah,
hustlers. They don't know the legalities of nothing,
right.
but they're hustlers.
But they're hustling, right? So we have that spirit in us, but we don't know like the legalities, the operations of it. And so fear of doing the unknown, fear of, stability, right? Because that's either what call it scarcity mindset or whatever it is, stability is really important. And so getting over that fear was one of the biggest challenges. And to me, I still have it to this day, right? And I think that it's something that's going to continue, but I try to ground myself in like things that are true. Like I know I may be a new firm owner, but I've been an attorney for 10 years, right? I know what I'm doing. If I don't know something, I'm going to find out. I've created, I feel like a network of clients that like really get me, and I found my people. And so I feel really comfortable with that, and a sense of comfort. So I think really just grounding myself and telling my things like, you've done this before, you're doing it now, and taking it one step at a time. There, I think when you first start out, you want to do a lot of things in the beginning. Like you're excited, of course, and you're like, I want to do all of the things. I want, to launch this, and my website has to be perfect and all of that. And it's just not possible. Even if you had unlimited funds, it's really difficult to get all of those things in order really quickly at the same time, right? So keeping that in mind, that it is a slower process than you might think, but you do need patience to make sure that things are done correctly. And then also, like, doing your research. Again, I know that the information is not super readily available, but if you in your mind have some kind of idea as to what it is you're going to need to do, like, I need to set up an LLC, then I need to get a bank account, then I need to do this, just so you have it in your mind. You're not going to do it all in the beginning, but it's something just to keep in mind. So for me, it was pacing myself, and then whenever fear set in, just telling myself some truths about what I've already done, what I know I can do, and what is possible in this moment.
Yeah. I would love to dive into, like, what do you think are some of those first steps, right? And setting up your small business, right? When you're taking this sort of leap of faith, like, we already know that money is going to be involved in this process, right? So we have to prepare for that in some way. So when there is a little bit of money in your pocket, what are some of those first initial steps that you think a small business should be taking?
Yeah, so I think even before you get into the let's set up an LLC and all of that stuff, there's like the moment of time before, where I call it like information gathering, right? Like, do some research in your industry, whatever it is that you're going to start, whether it be a product or a service-based business. Just start Googling like what's already out there. And it's not for imitation, right? It's just for literally educational and informational purposes. How is this done? Like, if people are selling the same thing that I'm selling, how do they sell it? What payment processor do they use? What does their website look like? And start kind of creating a game plan as to all of the things that you're going to need. And I will say, with the caveat, that can be overwhelming, because it can be a lot of things, right? You're like, website, all this stuff. Totally understandable. Again, slow and steady wins the race. But if you have an idea of what's to come, then you can plan for it. So even with, legal services, or getting an accountant and, meeting with them on consultations, even if it's a paid consultation, it might be a small investment, but they'll be able to guide you as to what you'll need to do in the future. So maybe you won't hire them immediately, but again, they'll give you information on what is to come. Keeping that, in your back pocket as you move along is extremely important, because you are managing your expectations about what's to come mentally, but also financially. Like you said, there are going to be some investments to be made. That's just, the truth of it. But as long as you know what those investments are, roughly when you need to make them, it really, really does help you plan from a financial perspective, and, emotionally, mentally, because you know what's to come. And so it's not sticker shock where you're like, oh, that's how that much costs. So I really think before you get into all of that, it's really like preparation, like the research phase, we'll call it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. When we got to the trademark process of it all, I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
How many trademarks do we really need?
Right. We're like, we want to trademark like 20 things. And you're like, oh, so we're trademarking 1, 2
They're like,
things?
I'm going to get back to you. I think we need to.
Yeah. I will say the value too, and like in that beginning process, in that sort of information gathering process, the value of like business coaches, and like, if you don't even know where to start, right, like they can sort of provide you like some insights on an outline of like where to go and what to do. There's so many different types of experts, right? And different areas. So you have your lawyers that are touching on your contracts and all the things. You have your accountant that's talking money. But business coach gives you a well-rounded sort of outlook on all of it, right? And even if that's just, again, like you mentioned, Pamela, doing a consultation and just getting sort of initial information before you fully invest on everything. And also fully decide if that's the route that you need to take or want to take. You know, entrepreneur life seems like a beautiful idea, right? But it's a lot. It's hard work. It's a lot. It's an investment of money, of time, of energy,
Yep.
patience. Like, you know, and it stretches you thin for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a lot that goes in, not to deter people from it, but also knowing, being realistic with yourself on what you're able to do.
Yeah, I
And
see that. Oh, sorry, Michelle.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna shout out our business coaches because they have been super helpful in our process. So we love iFund Women because we are able to do coaching calls with them, and they center us and keep us accountable and keep things moving, since there's so many things that we have to have top of mind that are moving simultaneously. The sessions just help so much to kind of, okay, now this is next.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a business coach as well for a year program, and I cannot recommend it enough. I don't think that I would have gotten to the point where I would have quit my job without that, because it was so much guidance, like, you know, keeping you, like you said, like a well-rounded view of what you need to do, how you need to do it. And I recommend, you know, if you can make that investment for any like rising entrepreneur, just make sure that, you know, there's so many coaches out there now and they all offer a lot of different things. I would make sure that their niche is you, so that they, you know, generally, if you can, so that they know the specific needs of your business type, of you as a business owner, so that, you know, they can more effectively help you.
Yeah. I mean, how lovely has it been to see, like, just like this new wave of interest in entrepreneurship, especially within our communities, right? Like, everybody's starting a business.
I love it. I love it. With the, like, again, caveat that, you know, there are just some people, like you said, that they think they're just like unicorns and rainbows. And it's like, not. Like, it's the hardest that you're ever going to work. And it's going to be worth it if you love what you're doing and if you believe in it. But it is such hard work. There are days where I'm like, am I sure I don't want to go back to 9 to 5 life?
Yeah, and it's not for everyone, in the sense too, like,
Right.
some people need that structure,
Yes.
right? Like a lot of people thrive on that structure, like 9 to 5, that's it, I clock out, I'm done, I'm good, right? But entrepreneur life is kind of not that at all.
There's clock out.
There's no clock out, there's no clock in, no one's checking on your work.
You're constantly thinking about all of the things.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just get an idea and then you have to keep on working it because you don't it's gonna come next.
Right. Those shower thoughts, like when you think of
24/7,
something in the shower and you're like, I got to write it down.
Absolutely. Drop some thoughts in the comments if you feel what we're saying, you know, show us some love, some hearts. So Pamela, I wanted to dive into, like, sharing your thoughts on protecting your intellectual property, and what does that look like for a small business owner, sort of initially?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few different ways that you can do that. When you are starting out, I know we've talked about LLCs. You know, there are different entities that you can form. LLC is the most common, especially with small business owners. It's the easiest to start and the easiest to maintain. That LLCs are more related to protecting you, the business owners, as individuals. So LLCs shield you from liability, right? If, God forbid, someone sues your business, they sue the LLC and they don't sue you, Michelle, as an individual. And so that protects your personal bank accounts and all of those things. So that's where LLCs come in from a legal standpoint. And then there are a whole bunch of, like, tax considerations. So that's why I always say, you know, when you're starting a business, of course, talk to a lawyer if you can, but also, like, in conjunction with speaking to an accountant, make sure that they're involved and that you ask them the best business structure for you. But then LLCs also come into play with intellectual property. And owning trademarks, essentially, which we can get into in a little bit. But I generally advise my clients that when we are applying for a trademark, if you have an LLC, to have the LLC own the mark, because trademarks are assets to your company. So they increase the value of your company. If one day you were to sell your LLC, that's part of the asset, that, like I said, it increases the value of your company. So really important, for trademark specifically, you want the LLC to own it and not any of the owners individually. But then the other two most important ways that you can protect your IP, your intellectual property, is by way of registrations, which is registering your trademarks, registering your copyrights, and we can go into the difference between the two. And then contracts, making sure that you are protected via contracts. If you are an influencer or any kind of content creator, really, and you are sharing this content with another entity, or they want to use it for anything, you have to make sure that your agreement is very clear on how they're using it, for how long, how much are they paying you. Like the fee to use my content, once, use it once and just repost it, is very different than the fee to keep my content in perpetuity, which I do not recommend. But all of those things is kind of like an equation. It's a calculation that you have to go into. This is your hard work that goes into the content you create. And so you have to make sure that you are properly compensated if someone else wants to use it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely want to dive into, so there's a couple of terms that people might also get mixed up, right? A trademark, a copyright, a patent, right? Like these three words are very different, but somehow, right? But people may not understand it. Kind of maybe distinguish the three for us. So
yes, and people use them interchangeably all the time. And again, I don't blame you. Why would you know this?
Right.
So I'll start with the one that I'm going to talk about the least, because it's the one I don't do. So it's patent law, and it's because I can't do it. So to be a patent attorney, you have to take a separate bar exam. You had to have studied a hard science in undergrad. So I'm not a patent attorney. However, patents generally are inventions. So designs of inventions, like if you design some kind of machinery or anything like that, that is something that is patentable. Trademarks and copyrights are where I focus on, and most content creators, that's what relates to them. So trademarks are about your brand names, brand logos, or slogans. So if you think of Nike, they have Nike, the word, which is their brand name, and that's trademarked. They have Just Do It, which is their slogan, that's trademarked. And they have the swoosh, which is their logo. So it's essentially about brand identity and brand recognition. And when consumers see that name, logo, or slogan, they think of you. And that's after you build up this brand recognition, right? The idea being is that, one, consumers will identify that brand name, let's say, with your company, but also you will be able to stop others from using that for their benefit. Other brands, they can't use your name to sell their products. They can't use your logo or your slogans. So trademarks, brand identity, it's basically about your identity as a company. Copyrights, on the other hand, are about artistic works. So anything from a book, music, lyrics, musical compositions, art, photography, blog articles, YouTube videos, all of those things fall under the copyright realm. Yeah, I don't want to get too specific, bore you guys to death, but that's where you're seeing, when people talk about copywriting, it's about their artistic works.
So that would be more than likely the lane for like New York. I don't know. Intermission.
And now I don't know if you guys are hearing it. Hopefully not.
No, I don't hear anything on your side. No. On how creatives can monetize on their work, right? Like there's a lot of content creators, there's influencers, there's these TikTokers. There's all types of ways to
Yeah.
monetize, even now on social media. What does that look like on a copyright or ownership standpoint? Like, how do they even go about that process?
Great question.
Mm.
So for copyrights under copyright law, there are certain automatic protections that you get the moment that you create the work. And so the moment that the person clicks the camera for that picture, the moment that they put pen to paper to draw that sketch, they own the work as the copyright owner. However, that only gets you so far. So you are seen as a copyright owner. If someone were to infringe, meaning steal or use that work after you put it out in the internet, or elsewhere, if someone were to use that, that automatic protection only gets you so far. So you would need to register that work with the Copyright Office, similar to registering your trademark with the Trademark Office, in order to be able to like sue them or to get damages. And so I think that people don't realize how valuable their content can be. There are certain statutory damages that apply to copyright infringement. And what that means is you don't have to go in front of a judge and like beg them to give you X amount of money. By law, there's like a range of money that you're entitled to statute wise, be just by nature of someone stealing your content. So registering your works, your really important or popular works, I think is really important. And then also what we touched upon earlier, making sure that your contracts are solid, making sure that you narrowly describe how people are using your content, for how long, how much are they going to pay you, what do they have to do once this period is over. You have to be really careful in the rights that you give people. And I think that the best way to do that is to make sure that you have legal representation when you're reviewing these agreements. And I know that it's an investment. I know that that's not accessible for everybody. But I think that it's something that's just super important, because these agreements are, I look at influencer agreements every day, and some of them are like, 10 to 20 pages, 10-point font with like all of this legal stuff. And most people just sign them, and you're essentially signing your rights away to your work, usage rights, all of that stuff. So I think making sure that you understand that you can register these works officially, they can have, copyright protections, and that your agreements reflect that.
Yeah, I would love to like hear on, for creators out there that are working with, and this is an entrepreneur in a different sense, right? Like if you're an actor or, working for a company or whatever, and they use your image or likeness and give you a contract to maybe be a part of that, like, what do you recommend when those things happen? Because, you get these contracts, especially if you're new to it, right? And you, like you said, a lot of these influencers are just signing sort of paperwork. There should be someone looking at this, right? A lot of these, I know one person in particular that, signed a contract, and now her image is being used as almost a face of the company, but she's not receiving any residuals off of it or anything. So she sees it in the parent, and it's a large company. It's not a small business. So she realized thereafter that like there was something wrong in the contract, and now, she can't take it back, essentially.
Yeah, there are huge examples like Bobbi Brown, the makeup company. She can't use that's her actual name, and she can't use that, to create other makeup lines. She couldn't use that up to a certain amount of time, and then she was able to launch something else. Haley Page, I think her name is, she had the wedding dress brand, and she admitted to not having an attorney when they gave her an agreement, and she was signing the rights away to her own name, her like legal name. So,
Mm-hmm.
Other than hiring legal representation, maybe a manager or someone who is well versed in these agreements, that knows what to look for, knows what to pick out, because that, name, image, and likeness language, it can be everywhere. And essentially you're releasing them, which means you're giving them the ability to use your face, your name, anything, your brand name, forever. It can be if the language says so. So you have to be really careful, not just of your content, of course, super important, but also like your image rights, especially if you are an actor or any kind of person who uses their, image as part of their business.
Yeah, I would. You mentioned the word perpetuity.
Perpetuity. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other like words like that that people should be on the lookout that should raise a flag of look into this deeper?
So I would say that's a great question. I have a post that goes through like the 5 terms in content creator, and perpetuity is definitely one of them. I can't really think of, unless the money is amazing, I can't really think of an instance where you should license something to someone in perpetuity, right? There are like very small, very specific instances, but in general, if you see in perpetuity, that means forever, and nothing should go on forever unless they're paying you big, big money. Because if you think about it, they get to then take that and use it however they want. They run ads, they can use it in print, they can use it in digital. The sky's the limit for how they can use it. I would say perpetuity. I would say things like termination. Make sure that you can get out of the agreement somehow if something goes wrong. Obviously, you can't just get out of an agreement because you don't feel like it, but look for termination language. Usage rights is going to be, that's where you're going to find a lot of the language relating to like licenses that you're granting for the use of the contract, of the content or of your image. So you'll see like license and grant and all of that stuff. Let's see. And then, confidentiality, if it makes sense for the business relationship that you want things to be kept confidential, make sure that those obligations are mutual. I find that a lot of agreements have them only going one way, like the talent, for example, only has to keep the company's information confidential. You want to make sure that anything that you share with them about your future plans, your future projects is kept confidential. Any of the other language is like heavy legalese and not for today, but things like indemnification, huge. Most attorneys don't even know how to explain it or like work their way through it. So it just shows the importance of making sure that you have someone on your side that is reading these agreements for you and with you, to ensure that you're like very protected.
What are some best practices you feel when it comes to like contracts themselves in general, like either your small business in need of contracts? Because I'll tell you, there's a lot of contracts out there that you can just pull, and then put your information in. You're like, boom, that's it. We're good, right? So, what are your opinions around that?
No, please don't. I've seen people, non-attorneys, selling contracts on Etsy, on Craigslist, and I am like, clutch my pearls. Oh my God. And I'll tell you why. It's not because, we're just trying to make attorneys rich. It's because, our education and our background goes into everything that happens when we're drafting an agreement, right? So for example, if you have an independent contractor agreement, there has to be specific language in there that says this person is not my employee. I am not going to offer them benefits, all of that stuff, right? That's not something that you would really think of, you wouldn't know. But by law, if your independent contractor agreement doesn't have those provisions, or if the relationship is more of an employer-employee type of relationship, you could be in trouble later. You could be seen as their employer. You could have to like be responsible for benefits and all of those things. So that's just a small example of some of the like background expertise that goes into crafting these agreements. It's not just like, who are the parties? How much are they paying? What are the services? There's a whole, world that goes into it. So I know that not everyone can afford to work with an attorney one-on-one for a custom made from scratch agreement, right? That makes total sense, especially when you're starting out as a small business. There is a new kind of generation of attorneys that are launching what are called contract template shops. I have one. Essentially, it is a way to offer attorney drafted agreements to small businesses at a more affordable price, but still have that like expertise included. So you can Google, you know, attorney contract template shop, and there are many of them out there. Many of my colleagues offer them for that reason. You know, they're kind of plug and play. You insert your name, the parties, all that stuff, but you have the comfort of knowing that it is drafted by an attorney and that it will protect you. And you put in your governing law for the state that you reside in and all of that stuff. So it's a really, really great way to get legit legal protection at a more affordable price.
What was the name of that again?
Like a contract template shop.
Oh.
I can, just as an example,
Awesome.
not as a plug, but
Right.
I'm going to put mine in the comments just so you see an example. Some are very like niche specific. If you are a coach or, you know, someone, there's an attorney that sells it specifically for coaches. So you might find one and in an attorney where you are their niche. So I would just look around and shop. I think that's what it is.
And just having representation that way too, like if we, you know, there's also like the opportunity for building out the contract and then having your representation review it before you put it out, right? Instead of them creating it from scratch or whatever, maybe you can't afford that. And that's also a possibility.
Yeah, I've done that as well. I'm glad you brought that up. I'll have clients that say, I have this agreement. I'm not sure like how good or not it is. Like, can you review it? And I'm happy to do that too. Like make edits, make sure that it's like strong and that it holds up. And you know, obviously that's at a lower price than me drafting something from scratch. So happy to do that where I can, just, you know, to help y'all out.
Someone in the comments mentioned they came in when you were speaking about options for licensing, and they were hoping that you could repeat on that.
Options for licensing.
Do you want to specify in the comments, Jessa Rendall? I can't. It's long.
I see the comments for some reason, but
you can't.
I think it's frozen.
If you want to ask the question specifically, maybe drop it in the comments again, so Pamela can maybe answer more clearly. If anyone has any other questions, drop it in the comments. Now is the time to do so.
Michelle, were you saying something? I feel like I saw you talking, but we couldn't hear.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I was on mute because I'm in the car for those that are joining now, and there was a vehicle announcing everything that they're selling. So
talking about hustlers,
yes.
entrepreneur life.
Yep.
But when you were talking about the contracts, and you did that with us with our independent contract, where I had a draft already, and the process was so it was so smooth because literally we just shared the doc with you and you just commented on it, and through email, it was the time lapse and the back and forth was very short. So like that also was super helpful because with all the expenses that we were having at that time, we couldn't do a draft that you created from scratch. So that was very helpful, and I really do recommend that.
Yeah. And it was super, you know, for me, my previous life, that's all I did was review agreements for like the past 8 years. So I can do that with my eyes closed, and I love doing that. So, you know, obviously that comes with like my expertise, and I'm able to just like, you know, do a quick run through with it. But it is stuff that a small business owner otherwise wouldn't know, right?
Yeah. I think too, right? Like, what many may not see is that the ease that comes with having certain experts on your side, and what that alleviates, right? Because there's so many stresses already within building a business that if you're trying to figure out every aspect of it on your own, like you're setting yourself up for failure and sort of self-sabotaging in a way, right? Like, so just having like, you know, a lawyer to like, okay, just handle the contracts because there's so much formalities and legalities. And if you're really trying to grow a business, in the way that I hope everyone is trying to grow it, right? Protect it. And, you know, there's so many companies, especially for businesses of color, that our ideas are stolen from us, our, you know, right? There's so many of these larger companies and corporations taking our ideas from us, and we have no protection around it. So guess what? That's it. Like, now it's their idea. It was never yours. And so the importance of even just backing yourself in that way, like, you know, we're still starting up. We only have a following of 1,600, but our trademarks are in because what we're planning for is something bigger than what we have right now. And so doing those things is really investing and believing in the growth of your business.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. I love that because I feel like I talk to some people that are just like, you know, that won't happen, or like, I don't have to do that. And to me, that says exactly what you just said. You don't believe that you're going to get that far, right? Like, and if we're not doing that for that, why are you wasting this time and energy? And I would venture to say that small businesses have to be even more focused on some of these investments because lo barato sale caro. And in the end, it will, especially for a small business with a limited budget, it can be more expensive, you know. Trademarking is one small example, but let's say you don't at least figure out and do a search and see if you can even use your name. Someone down the line comes and says, hey, you have my name, you have to stop and rebrand. A rebrand for a small business is a huge, huge expense. If you were a larger business, a corporation, rebrand, fine. They're, you know, changing websites, whatever. But for a small business, it's essentially starting over. All that goodwill that you've created with your customers and your clients and your followers is gone because you weren't able to make that investment. And, you know, I don't say this from a place of judgment. It's just like a place of education. And if there's something that you cannot afford in one moment, but you know that it's really important, save up for it. Like, find alternatives, do a portion of it. Just to get you some of the way there so that you start to build those protections.
Yeah, it's important to like outline those numbers from the beginning, like what these costs are going to look like for you. So that, yeah, you're working towards like just checking them off, you know, slowly, even if it is slow, like at least, you know, getting the process started. So she did mention her question again, and it was, what are some ways to license your work? So that
Usually it's through an agreement. You know, you may be approached by a brand or a company that wants to license your work, depending on what kind of work it is. You know, if it's like photography, there are sites that can administer that for you. But if it's, you know, other things, you know, content creation is such a huge umbrella now. There are lots of different ways, but usually, and it really always should come down to an agreement. That's where it's called a license agreement, and that's where the license language actually lives. And so there's no equation as to like, oh, if they ask for this amount of days, how much should I charge? It really depends. You know, it depends on the artist, it depends on what kind of work it is and how they want to use it. And that's something that you'll start to get a better idea of as time goes on, because it really does vary. But to license your work, it always should be in a signed writing in an agreement. And yeah, there's just a lot of different ways that those partnerships can work.
Awesome. So we're nearing the end here. I just want to check in if there's any sort of last minute questions. We have about 2 more minutes of taking any other questions. So if anyone wants to drop a question that they might have for Pamela, just overall about the process of starting. I know, you know, it's been a journey for us. you know, with Pamela, we submitted our trademark and we got it a year and 4 months later, you know, and and just understanding things like that's part of the process. And we're still in the business of trademarking some more things. And so it takes some time, and having the right person by you taking care of it is so important. So that's why we appreciate Pamela so much.
Yes.
I mean, I also want to say, like, not in a condescending way, but like how proud I am of you guys. You know, you guys are doing such amazing work, and you understand the importance of protecting yourself in all ways, right? You know, whether we're talking about agreements and trademarks. And so for you to get that like registration certificate, I was just so, so happy for you guys.
Yes, it is trademarked. The
Oh,
logo and the name.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
That is very important because it is two separate ones.
Right. I remember that being one of your questions. You were like, is it two? Like, yes, unfortunately, separate applications.
We're like, why is it two? And also, if we want it in different colors,
Yeah.
that's also more. We're like, all right, we don't care. We don't
We're
really
like, we
care.
got it. Black and white works.
Um, if if I already have an attitude whom I've been working with, can we make the switch to you? Huh?
An
You want
attorney, maybe?
an attorney? Probably, yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, of
sure.
course.
If, you know, if I offer the services that you need and you've ended your engagement with that attorney for, or maybe you're still working on one thing with them, yeah, you know, you can hit the link in my bio and there's like a book consultation button. I offer free 15-minute consultations to everybody just so that we can talk and vibe and see if I'm the right fit for you and you are the right fit for me. So yeah, let's talk.
Yeah.
In case there's any lingering questions, my last question is, in terms of like your journey so far, what do you feel is one of like your biggest wins?
That's tough to say right now. No.
Like I'm still going through it.
Yeah. Biggest wins.
Or even a small one.
You know, it really has to be quitting because it was so, so scary. And corporate America, period, but also as attorneys, like we're very wired to be a certain way and to be very like, you know, stuffy and cold and serious. And to make that leap while so many people in my life were like, what are you doing? Like, that doesn't make sense. You're leaving that salary and those benefits for what?
Right.
You know, during such a crazy time when the world was on fire and, you know, crazy things happening to me personally, the biggest win was listening to myself above all of that other stuff. Because I think it's very easy to stay in the comfort and the salary and the benefits and what everyone else thinks that you should do. That's the easy part, right? Like that's what I'd been doing for a really long time. So I was surprised at myself and proud that I actually like made the leap and I didn't wait to have all of the boxes checked off. So that's my win so far. The challenges are still coming.
I mean, that's a huge one, right? You know, taking the leap is tough. It is absolutely tough. And as entrepreneurs ourselves, like we can attest to doing both, leaving the job and just working the entrepreneur life, then coming back to a job and
Working both.
working both, working three jobs, you know, all the
Right.
things.
All the things.
But with that being said, we are at the end of our live. Thank you guys so much for commenting, joining the conversation. We will be posting this on YouTube and we'll share the link as well later on so you guys have it. Thank you so much, Pamela, for representing us, but also for being amazing, representing small businesses and really taking that leap towards just helping communities of color like our spaces to thrive, and bringing this language to an understanding for us, like a real understanding. So appreciate you. Just real quick, let them know the handles, your website, you know, all the things.
Thank you guys for having me again. My pleasure. Really, really my pleasure. You can find me at PamelaRosarioLaw.com, Pamela Rosario Law on Instagram, Pamela Rosario Law on Facebook, I believe, which I just started. But yes.
Awesome. And us, you can follow us at It Is You if you're not following already. Support our campaign if you can. We have some exciting things coming very, very soon that will be launching soon. So please give us a follow and help businesses like ours thrive, because we need more and more of them.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good evening, guys.